I'm Johnny Reinsch, Executive Director of the Tokenized Asset Coalition, and I'm here with the guys from COTI, Shahaf, Josh. Introduce COTI, introduce yourself.
I'll start by introducing Cotti, as it's the youngest thing. So Cotti is a high throughput blockchain. It is an encrypted blockchain, so it allows you to do private transactions on a public ledger. We started Cotti off back at 2017, started our first network, just recently launched our second network, which is also an Ethereum layer 2 and works with 70 other blockchains, so we can do privacy on demand. I've been the founder since day one, and before that I was in TAC in Israel for 20 years or so. That's pretty much it.
So my name is Joshua Maddox. I'm CEPO for Cotti. I'm an advisor to Provenance Blockchain Foundation, advisor to Saudi Arabia AI and Blockchain Center. My day job is obviously with Cotti. Came to Cotti because of it really has a best of class privacy feature on public blockchain. Fundamentally what that means is that you can do compliant privacy on a public blockchain at speed and cost efficiency for the first time. So there have been lots of various flavors of privacy technology. For the informed, there's things like FHE or ZK. We use a technique called garbled circuits, and what that allows you to do is have end-to-end participants in a given smart contract or a given transaction, and you can granularly dial in not only who gets access rights to which slices of data within a transaction, but also you can dial in who can run computation on top of data that never needs to decrypt in order to get inputs and outputs that you need. So real world example, let's say that you have a bank and you have customer A, customer B, bank A, bank B, and some regulatory authority. The regulatory authority has to demand that they can see inside of a transaction to check for like AML or any other monitoring that a particular jurisdiction may need to do to stay compliant. And what you would like is to give your users the authority to be able to provide that ability to the regulatory authority.
Right.
While also maintaining data privacy, data asymmetry, things like this that they may need in order for traditional finance institutions to be able to come on-chain.
Let's say there's a flag on a user and the financial institution now needs the full file from onboarding that user. Basically, with Cotti, you could transfer that information on an as-needed basis versus having everything kind of live out publicly at all times. Is that?
That's right. You can have your kind of consortium of users transfer, or better yet, you can build your dApp so that way that regulatory authority always has that permission on a per needs basis, and so then they can then go and kind of like smush that decrypt button, if you will, at any point to get the data that they need for you to stay compliant.
Gotcha.
But it's probably just important to note that this is in the realm of selective disclosure. So right now what you have is either completely anonymous blockchains mixers, which are obviously illegal and have been delisted and banned in many ways. And then you have public blockchains, which is 100% full-on transparency. And that may sound well, like, hey, transparent is good, isn't it? But it's not, because it infringes privacy rights and laws.
Totally.
So the idea is to have a blockchain that allows you to customize the level of privacy that you want, because privacy is very contextual, like who gets the right to view what information. So you can actually program that in your, like the way you build your app. So if you're building an exchange or a decentralized exchange to that extent, then you can decide who gets to view what.
And is that at the so the user level, i.e. the wallet level, and then also the transaction level and the metadata level? So
yeah, because exactly, because it is in the infrastructure level. So you can just decide how you want to build it. And the obvious thing that people don't really get is that when you do a payment with a stable coin on a public blockchain, you've just unveiled your entire transaction history. You're paying to someone who sells something. You just let everybody in the world know exactly the revenue is generating, etc., which sounds absurd, but this is the reality in public blockchains.
It's very true. I mean, you can trace every transaction back to the Genesis block.
And whatever you can't do right now, you could in say 2-3 years with AI and surveillance. So and it's immutable, so it's there. So at some point everything is publicly available unless we act now and build the sort of solutions that Cotti offers.
Yeah, and it makes sense because coming from my experience at Tradable, when I spoke to asset managers about trading risk in private credit, one of the questions that always came up was, will people see my positions? Will they see when I'm trading? And will that move the market on whatever my asset is? And I said, you know what? Maybe. And it's a real objection. Like if you can see that a firm is, lining up trades or like dumping a certain asset or something, what's going to happen to the value?
Yeah.
There might be actual name recognition with that holder that makes the value go down more so than what the order book is actually like filling. So it makes a ton of sense to me.
Yeah.
What was
and by the way, it happens every day with with MEV exploits or front running people that just bid. Maybe they're anonymous, but their bid isn't. So
Yeah,
that actually affects the market right now.
if I knew that I don't know, some big holder of a cred or something, was about to dump a bunch of it, like, yeah, I would definitely try and trade that first if I saw it on chain.
Absolutely.
So what was did you guys start with a set of use cases, or did you have customers that were like, I really need this, or did you run into problems with technology that you'd previously used? Like, what was the inspiration for building Cotti?
The inspiration was actually payments, because this was the first use case that Cotti actually built for. Then quickly realized, wow, there's a big gap here. Along came an opportunity for us to work with cryptographers that are actually building the underlying technology that we use, gobbling circuits. The reality that public blockchains are, well, public, and that is impossible to work with as business or institutions trading. That has been known all along, but the solutions were pretty bad. You can either migrate your entire ecosystem to like a closed small time ecosystem, which you wouldn't.
Right. Liquidity's fractured.
Exactly.
Everything's less usable. So,
Exactly.
Yeah.
The other thing that you could do is just do something like with a very high latency, very expensive, and that doesn't work as well. And gobbling circuits actually makes it very useful right now on Ethereum and whatever public blockchain of your preference. You can actually use what we do. That was the inspiration, and then with use cases, well, essentially I believe everything is better when privacy is an option. So payments, real-world assets, DeFi, AI, everything is much better when the option is there, but you can probably add to that.
No, I completely agree. I mean, I think about it in the context of, I've got two daughters that are growing up in this world. I believe that blockchain is going to be a solution for many things in the financial system. And I think, you probably believe that as well, or you wouldn't be.
I've been here for too long to not.
Yeah. But the reality is like what Shahaf just said, they're growing up in a world that anything that they do on the blockchain is publicly exposed. And the implications of that, I don't think people have fully thought through, because most people think that blockchain is private by default. They hear cryptography and crypto.
It's so not private. I
Yeah.
mean, like, I started in Bitcoin, and you can see everyone's Bitcoin transactions now. Like, the on-chain analytics are so good that, I mean, it's on a block explorer.
But there's very simple things like, ask the blockchain world why blockchain companies don't pay their staff in USDC on chain. Like, they don't. There's very few blockchain companies that actually do payroll on chain, even though they're blockchain first organization, and it's because of privacy.
Because you don't want your whole P&L on chain.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You don't want your whole P&L on chain. You don't want staff to compare salaries, etc. Whether that's right or wrong, that's the reality. And then the other issue, I mean, even down to small things like we're here at Token 2049 in Dubai. You get into a taxi and someone sees a blockchain shirt. If you pay for that taxi using your wallet, you don't know if you get wrench attacked afterwards, or they follow you back to your hotel because they know that you have blockchain assets. And so even simple payments like to a taxi driver becomes problematic.
Yeah, definitely. I honestly had never thought about the OPSEC issues with that. Of the hype cycle right now around stablecoins, if it's to be believed, is everybody's going to pay with stablecoins and credit cards are dead, and that we're going overboard with it. But I never thought about how you could have that problem of literally getting in the wrong cab and on-chain activity shows that this is a whale. Like, I know they're staying at this place. It's a problem.
Yeah, this has already started happening around the world. So,
and it's the same wallet that may afterwards, donate to a certain cause that later on becomes very unpopular, or you vote in a DAO decision and like, why did you vote that and not that? And it's not, it's, it's, if this is why we have shower curtains and everything else in life. Transparency is not always the first choice.
Yeah, have you guys seen those videos where it's like someone interviewing a couple and they have them go through their phones like on camera? Like imagine having all of your on-chain activity like exposed all at once. It's like all the meme coins, all the dumb things that you invested in over the years. It's like,
that's the least of my problems, sir. Obviously.
Yeah, I mean, but it is the visceral reaction that people don't think about is like, why does a blockchain need privacy? Imagine your phone suddenly unlocks all of your DMs, every SMS that you sent, and then it becomes very, very clear why you need this today. Like,
yeah, totally. This might be too technical, but I spent a lot of time learning about zero knowledge proofs, and I can distill my understanding to a children's book probably. But I am curious for an explain like I'm five explanation of garbled circuits.
Well, first of all, garbled circuits, unlike zero knowledge proofs, are an amazing piece of math, but they are limited because you need to know in advance what proof are you making. So right now I'm making the proof that I am over 18. But to enter, it turns out that I need to be over 18 and not from the US, for instance, right? Oh, so now we need to make that proof as well. That takes time, money. The other thing is that zero knowledge is limited because it's not multi-party computing. So you can't really build a DEX with zero knowledge, or you can't do an auction with zero knowledge because there are multiple parties involved. So garbled circuits, first of all, are part of a discipline called multi-party computing. So it involves few parties. Now, it is also using the sort of math that doesn't require you to decipher data to make it useful. So essentially, any data breach ever that has ever happened because at some point someone needed to decipher the data, to take a look, to use it somehow before encrypting it again.
Yep.
And at that point, something bad happened because people are not dumb. They're not just keeping, public data unless it's a blockchain. Then they do it all the time, right? So, with garbled circuits and also with fully homomorphic computing, FEG, which is another buzzword, you can actually use that data without needing to decipher it. It's a magic, right? So, a good example, and garbled circuits were invented to solve this problem, is imagine a neighborhood, and it's terrible in a sense that everybody wants to know who's the richest guy in the neighborhood. Okay, so imagine LA. But people don't really want to disclose their net worth. They just want a mathematical proof, indisputable proof that this is number one, this is number two, this is number three. So they write their net worth on a note, but they don't really write it. It's a code, okay? So even if someone finds this note, their net worth is not exposed. And they take all these ciphered notes and they put it in a black box that nobody can see within. And that black box can actually tell you the result is Joshua is the richest guy in the neighborhood. So this is something that garbled circuits can do.
Gotcha.
And they can do it in a very high throughput with very low costs, which is amazing because this is the sort of encryption technology we've been waiting for. So essentially, if you transact on a public blockchain using Cotti, nobody knows what you have in your wallet. Nobody knows what you sent, what you voted for, etc. But the addresses are there. And if you need to audit that, like as a person or as an entity, you could, if you have the keys for that.
Right.
And this is what makes it unique because it puts it in par with what we are accustomed to in the Web 2 world, like banking apps, etc.
I'm going to have so many more questions when I double click into that more, when I separately research it, but I get the basic idea. And I think in LA, one thing that's true is usually it's the person with the G-Wagon that is not the richest one on the block.
Exactly.
True most places around the world.
Yeah.
Exactly. Super interesting. And obviously my first interaction with the tech, and cannot wait to dive in more and understand it better. But it makes a ton of sense. And having the multi-layered permissioning for, regulator use case versus my use case versus, the bank, the recipient bank of my transaction, it makes a ton of sense to me. So what do you guys think is on the horizon for tokenized assets?
Well, look, I think from Cotti's perspective, one of the big hindrances, like if you look at like BIS reports, like Icebreaker, any of these, privacy is always a top 4 or 5 issue. And there's things like trading strategies or actively managed funds, et cetera, that you would like to bring on chain eventually when the assets are there. Mm-hmm. And but how can you do something as simple as like maybe this is a strange term, but like compliant dark pools, for example.
Yeah.
Like where you have to do your reporting at the end of a quarter.
Great use case, by the way.
Yeah. Exactly. And you would like to have those dark pools on chain. So what I would like to have is assets that come in where people can't see my position. I can have my strategy on chain as the fund manager and be able to keep my strategy intact because it ceases to be useful the moment it's on a public blockchain.
Yep.
And then at the end of that quarter, I would like to be able to push a button and send the reporting out to whoever needs to have that report.
I'm a BD. I have to submit to FINRA or whatever. Boom.
Exactly.
Done. Another interesting use case could really be what I'm starting to see more of is at the sovereign level, enforcing data security within jurisdictional borders. And so I don't know if you guys have seen this yet, but making it so that anybody interacting on chain within that border is only interacting with certain types of nodes that are like physically located.
Yeah.
And then you cannot see certain data types if you're outside of that jurisdiction. I would imagine that'll start to come up too.
Absolutely. I think it won't just be jurisdictions, it'll also be domains, right? But you even think about it, as AI starts to come on, where you're going to have like lots of pockets of data inside of a particular jurisdiction, and you would like to do something like federated learning, for example, where we can share data together, but I don't have to trust any one actor with that data.
Yeah.
So not only can you keep it within the domains of the regulatory environment, but then you can also keep your data safe while sharing it with 20 other actors, and then bringing that data for use on AI, where everyone inside of that data consortium can begin to label it, use it, get the outputs that they need from it. So, but I think what that opens up from your original question, like how does this support RWA? We talk about efficiencies that are going to come from tokenization, but those efficiencies, a lot of times that we're talking about, have to get pushed off to off-chain execution environments or private blockchains.
Even things like RPC, like it's still pretty centralized for the most part. Yeah.
Yeah. And most of the time it's centralized because they have to be compliant. So we're not going to get this like true capital efficiency that comes from tokenization, or that like the tokenization has promised, if we're not able to do the trading, work with counterparties, et cetera, in an atomic and permissionless way. For that to happen, you have to have privacy. Like it's just no brainer. So.
And just within the broader market context right now, we're operating where there's backing out stablecoins because they're kind of in their own bucket, tokenized cash. 20 billion-ish or so of like tracked on-chain value in tokenized assets. Which is nothing. It's like a drop in the bucket.
Yeah.
Where do you guys think the liquidity comes from? Like who ultimately is that, or maybe it's a culmination of factors, but what is the event that actually like incites liquidity, or are we going to keep just stacking slowly for the next couple decades or so?
Well, I'm not sure, but from my experience,
I won't hold you to it.
Yeah, it's always leapfrogs at some point, right?
Yeah.
But what do you think will be the catalyst?
I think Shahaf's exactly right. I think what we will see is we'll see stacking, like what you're talking about. People will keep, trying at the edges to bring assets in, and will at some point hit the proverbial tipping point that all technology hits at some point. But I think it happens in places like MENA, broader Africa, et cetera, where people have, I think Claire Francis was here earlier and was talking about young population centers. So you have young population centers across sea, across Africa, and they are mobile first. They're very hyper plugged in. They're technically savvy, and their governments are really starting paying attention to like what's happening in Dubai, what's happening in like the MAS in Singapore, what London is doing, and they have the ability to leapfrog quickly. And I think once they kind of prove out those use cases, and we already see that with stablecoins, right? Like stablecoin really got its tipping point from cross-border payments, and especially in areas where you couldn't get access to dollars.
Or traders wanting to take get liquidity, from one exchange to the other and do, kimchi premium trades and things like
This
that.
as well, yeah.
But no, like the point's well taken. And my bet, this is little known, but Quill, which was a fintech company that I ran, we built on Stellar. And the idea was that we could put the loan book up there and diversify our capital base by, proliferating on chain. This is actually how I met Mike and June a long time ago, because we were kind of the first ones thinking about this way, way back when. And unfortunately, there was zero liquidity. But my hypothesis, which I still hold to, I just think we were too early on, is that more esoteric assets, alternatives, emerging markets, et cetera, do provide a great proving ground for this stuff, because they don't have infrastructure that is great, that needs to be ripped out and considered like, it works, we'll just stick with it. It's like you actually have an opportunity to go in and say, here's a whole system, here's a financial system, OS that can work for you. So I agree with you. I think the catalyst could be large pools of capital that are fueling those markets, and then it just keeps tipping and spilling until, one day it's like, there was a pre on chain.
I think the large capital allocators have to wait for the technology to be proven out. That gets done exactly what you just how you just said. Regulatory clarity comes more and more. There's going to be a stacking approach. It's going to be slow, like it always is.
It's helping, It's already helping. I mean, we've seen that in the U.S. In this last year, where just indications of regulatory clarity are bringing so much capital and projects back into the United States, where they were offshoring, this time last year.
Well, it's with Providence, when you're talking about Mike and June, like they were able to capture 10% of the U.S. HELOC market, in 1 year, and 10 of the top 20 mortgage providers, because you either did it the way that Figure went out and did it, or you got disrupted. It was like, do this or else. And I think that's also how things have to happen, whether it's privacy at Cotti. If you want to be competitive, you need a private solution. If you want to be able to stay competitive in mortgage market in the US, or HELOC market in the US, you're going to have to start doing things the way that Figure does it. And I think that's the way that like true disruption always happens over time. So it's the proving. The regulatory, kind of authority comes out and says, here's how you do it. And then people are forced into it, kicking and screaming, because if they don't, their business dies.
Yeah, totally. Well, either way, going to be exciting to watch, and very cool to learn a little bit about Cotti. I will absolutely have follow-up questions for you.
Sure.
As I get myself up to speed at the 5-year-old level knowledge of garbled circuits, but thanks for that.
We've created a monster.
Yes, exactly. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Johnny.
Thank you.